Afternoon, good day, good morning, whatever time you're watching this. Welcome to another episode of Nation Watch powered by the People's National Congress. Today is Sunday, February 15th, 2026, and we are here to do our debrief of the budget 2026, which has just passed only a few days ago. I have with me today someone who is no stranger to any of you, and he is no stranger to Nation Watch, the one and only Honorable Ganesh Mahipaul. Good afternoon, sir. How are you
Good
doing?
afternoon, Eden. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, it's always a pleasure for us to have you here. You are among one of the few favorites on Nation Watch, at least for my stint here. Every time we have Ganesh on the program, we always get lovely feedback, and it's been a pain to try and get you. I know the budget and all the duties have been taking up much of your time, so I appreciate you availing yourself to sit with us and to discuss. Now, before we started recording, we were having an informal conversation. I think for the benefit of our viewers and supporters, there's just some things that I would like to hear from you. Now, this is your second stint in Parliament, correct?
You're correct.
Great. And how do you feel about this second stint now that you're not a green, or you're what was the word they use? They
I'm
call
yellow
you
now.
you're now a more ripe member of parliament. You've gone through the paces, and you are now amongst the senior members of the MP parliamentary bench for the APNU party. And they're much younger persons and other newer persons to the parliament. How do you feel with this new composition of parliament?
Well, let me begin first of all, since I know that this is being powered by the People's National Congress reform, to wish Comrade Robert Herman Orlando Corbin happy birthday. He's celebrating his 78th birthday today. He's a former leader of the People's National Congress reform, and I became a member of this great party under his leadership at that time. So today is very auspicious for that purpose. And secondly, it is auspicious because in the Hindu calendar, our Hindu brothers and sisters are celebrating Mahashivratri, which is an auspicious day in the Hindu community. So I want to also wish all Hindus and those who believe in Hinduism a happy Mahashivratri day. To come to your question now as to what is it that I have experienced, given that it is my second stint, I was very impressed, first of all, with the APNU members of parliament. I was impressed with the 6 new MPs that we have. I think they have really did well. All 6 of them, the 6 returning MPs, maintained their track, and they have shown improvement too. But specifically, I was impressed with the 6 new MPs. They showed that they have stamina to stay the long hours. Their focus and concentration on the work that had to be done was there, and I was really, really impressed with their performance. I must say that Terence Campbell had the task of fetching that burden to lead the 12, and he did impressively well, and I want to congratulate him and all the others. The new MPs on the government side, for me, they did not impress me at all, and that's because perhaps they were not given the floor to show their true potential. Um, I would be honest with you. The win new MPs for me did not really give any sort of posture for me to conclude that they meant what they were campaigning on, and that is holding the government accountable. You see, holding the government accountable is not singularly going on social media and putting out somebody's house or putting out somebody's whatever you do on social media. It requires you understanding the text that is before you, those 3 volumes that comprises the budget, knowing how to read them, how to ask pertinent and important questions, and how to expose the corruption. And I think the APNU managed to do that. I don't think WIN managed to do that at all. I think they have not utilized the three returning MPs that they have there, Tabitha Sarabu Hali, Don Hastings, and Natasha Singh. I don't think they really guided their new MPs to do what they had to do. And for that purpose, I would say that I gave APNU a passing grade for the work that they have done. And Win and the People's Progressive Party, for me, they got an F grade.
Thank you for that, Ganesh. Now, this will be the first of about four budgets that we expect under this parliament to be debated and to be discussed. Now, based on your observations as a senior member of parliament, do you anticipate that there may be improvements on any side in relation to some of the observations you've made?
Oh, yes, there will be improvements. You see, with experience comes, with time comes experience, and with experience comes the ability to develop. Some people take advantage of experience parliament. For me, they have longer years than the opposition members, but they have not changed in their modus operandi, and they still continue to be rank and raucous in the way they operate, which is very sad. Um, I am hoping that the win factor come up to the plate and recognize that as the major opposition, the task is really ahead of them for them to really work hard in terms of getting it right. And I don't think they have displayed the ability as yet, but I'm hoping that they do, because at the end of the day, holding the government accountable is the job of the entire opposition and not just the 12 APNU MPs. But that said, I am really optimistic about the job before us in terms of going into communities, in terms of checking out these various projects that the government outlined will happen, and to hold them accountable, because time is money and money is time. And if they languish in terms of getting the job done, it means that they're wasting the taxpayers' money. That has already been established in the previous budgets, where several projects have been delayed, several projects have not even kick-started. And perhaps one of the greatest findings in Budget 2026 that came out is the book reflecting that all of these monies were spent and the actual work on the ground is not seen with the naked eye.
Mm. Very astute observation there. And on my last question on general parliamentary issues, there is a misconception in the public, and it is because I guess not every citizen is capable of fully grasping what exactly occurs in Parliament, and most of them run away with the nice sound bites or the funny jokes, and as you noted, the ruckus and all of the noise in Parliament. As somebody who has done this, and it is your sixth time doing this, what advice would you give to the members of the public who want to follow the debates, who want to be more engaged in debate, but they find that there are too much distractions popping up with, listening to Parliament? A person might tune in and tune out. What advice would you give to other persons who are more concerned in paying attention, as you noted, to the more pertinent issues? And how can the members of the public now contribute to ensuring that the discussions of the budget are not just back and forth and point proving, but it actually advances the future of Guyana?
Parliament is not church, or is not a mandir or a mosque. Parliament is a space where serious business has to be conducted. But in between the serious business is also long hours. And sometimes to really sit in there and absorb what is happening and be focused, you need certain tension breakers. And part of the permitted manner of conducting business in the National Assembly is for you to have what you call heckles. Now, the heckling is really intended to throw your opponent off guard, to throw them off so that they can make mistakes and you can capitalize for your own political gains. And it happens on both sides. I think sometimes it gets to the point where it becomes personal and that affects certain people in the house. And it should not be, mind you. But because there is this freedom that is established in the National Assembly for you to heckle and try to throw your opponent off, when you realize that you get that opportunity to do it, you continue to milk that opportunity so that you can get to throw your opponent off. Very few people I have noticed really blossom when they're being heckled. I think Terence Campbell did fantastically well. After facing so many heckling, he still remained composed and delivered. I don't think the heckling disturbed Juretta Finance either. Certainly it did not affect me because I myself heckle the opponents, right? On the government side, I think Ashni Singh handles heckling well. I think Anil Nandalal handles heckling well also. And you have a few others. And then you have several of them that can't handle it and it throws them off track. On the We Invest in Nationhood side, I think Azruddin handled it well. I think a lot of people expected him to fail. I don't think his delivery had substance. I don't think he delivered a speech that was that of any substance and weight that is expected from the leader of the opposition. But I will give him credit for standing at the podium and confronting the PPP with their heckles and trying to throw one and two jabs. But it's very unfortunate that he spent 1.5 hours and nothing of solid meat came out from his presentation to speak to the economy, that speaks to the oil and gas sector, that speaks to basically improving the country. It was more a superficial kind of 1.5 hour speech. But I give him credit for actually withstanding the heavy heckling that came from the government side. And the difference with this parliament from the last one too is first-time presenters are usually given the courtesy of presenting uninterrupted. They're usually given the courtesy to just stand and deliver without being heckled. That certainly did not happen in this parliament. And everybody got heckled from both sides who are first-timers. But myself and the 5 others who have been there before from the APNU side, nothing really impressed us in terms of that because we are accustomed to it. And I think we really stood up, delivered, and showed our true strength. I will go as far as to tell you that I think the 12 demonstrated real commitment, and it was not like when we were 31 and fragile. We are 12 and solid.
Lovely. Now let's get more into the meat of these matters as we would have discussed. Now, after 5 years of oil production, based on your experience, what should a national budget look like?
Well, you have to first understand the concept of governance in order to understand what a national budget should look like. Budgets are supposed to reflect what the people want. And when I say what the people want, the people in its majority. A government is expected to lift people out of poverty, is expected to provide a comfortable country, a safe country, an economically sound country for people to develop and be happy. And when I say people, I mean in the majority. And you will hear me saying that very steady because I don't believe the People's Progressive Party has a focus on really putting the people first in its majority. We see a budget of $1.558 trillion, and we have seen trillion-dollar budgets. I think this is about the third budget that is in the trillion-dollar mark. And you have to ask yourself, were the ordinary people considered to be lifted out of the misery they find themselves in 5 years back when we did not have oil? Have you seen significant improvement in the majority who suffered without oil? And the answer is no. Majority of our people remain in the doldrum of poverty and they're not seeing their way out, even though we're having these $1 trillion budgets. And that's because the focus of the $1 trillion budget has been on the already rich and established and not on the poor and vulnerable. I don't think budget 2026 was a balanced budget. You have a few measures, yes, that I endorse and support, but majority of the measures did not consider the ordinary hardworking tax-paying Guyanese. When you lift your entire country by way of focusing on the poor and vulnerable in a balanced way, as you would also focus on the rich and already those who already have, when you balance it out, then you have a happier nation. Almost all of the measures in the budget will make the rich richer and give the poor a small percentage. And whilst the poor gets the small percentage, the increase in cost of living, the increase in prices on the market, the small that they're getting is really going back to that, and in some cases not even balancing it out. Like you've increased public servants' income tax threshold to $140,000, $10,000 more. They could have done better. They could have done better for public servants. Minimum wage, they didn't even touch minimum wage. Minimum wage remained the same figure it was, I think $100,000. The Because We Care cash grant, yes, has gone to $85,000. I think it should have gone a little bit higher because we do have the resources to do that. You remove the duty and taxes from the ATVs, but is it really the Amerindian communities that will benefit from the removal of that duty and taxes from the ATVs? Or will it be the big gold miners and the businesses that will flood the market to purchase these ATVs and so on? For me, if you really and truly wanted the Amerindian communities to benefit from the removal of duty and so on from ATVs, then you should have granted that to the Amerindian communities, to the indigenous communities. All 200 and something indigenous communities have tushaus. And if there are people within those communities that wanted to purchase ATVs, then that arrangement could have been made to them to get the exemption at the level of GRA. But instead, this measure is promoted as an avenue for indigenous people to benefit. But the reality is, the big gold miners, the big business people who are in the interior, who are not necessarily Amerindians, are the ones who are likely to benefit from it. And all of these infrastructure projects we see, where they'll be building this and building that and so on, it's the already big, well-established companies that will be getting the work, and they're the ones who will be benefiting from it maximum. You have all of these security firms. The poor people who work with these firms, they are not seeing an increase in their salary, but the budget caters for a significant increase to go to the people like Roshan Khan and all the others who have security services. They collect the big sum of money and they pay the people who actually do the work little to nothing. So the question is, are we to see the ordinary poor hardworking Guyanese benefit from budget 2026? And my answer to that is no, they will not. We will come again here next year and we will see some more roads, we will see some more infrastructure development, but will we see a person who is struggling to build a house, building a better house than what they had this year? No, the poor, the ordinary, the vulnerable who are in the majority will continue to suffer because the bigger boys, they collect the larger chunk and they just give a little crumbs to the smaller boys. It's a sad reality of the manner in which the People's Progressive Party is governing Guyana. And coupled in all of that is the corruption where drawbacks and kickbacks happen and ministers have to receive percentages from contracts awarded, and the poor and vulnerable are left to suffer. It's the sad reality.
Um, you mentioned a lot there, but to go more in depth to the inequality in the balance, there is the view that this budget, and you alluded to it earlier, this budget is more geared towards improving infrastructure, while the average person is left wanting more. However, considering that Guyana is still a developing state, some may say that, well, development should be at the forefront of our policy agenda, of our political agenda, being able to bridge the gap in relation to transportation, being able to bridge the gap in relation to economic costs from region 4 to region 1 or region 6 to region 8. And behind that, the infrastructural development is necessary. So it may be put forward that infrastructural growth and development is something that is long overdue in Guyana. How do we reconcile that with the average man left wanting more?
It has to be balanced. The approach has to be balanced. You have to balance your spending because the very infrastructure you're focusing on has to be enjoyed by the people of the country. The very comfort that you want to bring to your people, it has to be balanced with that of your spending in infrastructure. What sense does it make for you to be building all of this infrastructure and focusing a lot of energy on infrastructure and you don't have a happy people to enjoy it? Part of reducing crime requires balancing your spending in your budget. Part of ensuring that the socio-economic strength of communities are enjoyed by its people is it requires balancing your spending. You cannot continue to give the people who have more and the people who don't have less. You have to balance it out. I am not against development, nor is the APNU against development in infrastructure. What we want is a balanced approach. We want to know simultaneously with us focusing on, for example, the purchasing of the Berbice River Bridge, which the government is seeking to do, must also be equivalent to the senior citizens getting a pension that can actually keep them at home as opposed to going out in the nights becoming security guards. We want to know that our senior citizens who have toiled in the soil, they have that opportunity to enjoy their grandchildren at home and not to risk their lives at this tender age, tender in the sense of old age, and they have to go look to see to raise money to survive. I mean, why could we not have given our senior citizens $100,000 each and reduce the cost that we have in the budget for dietary and refreshment and meals? When you look at refreshment and meals in the budget, it has jumped from $600 million to $900 million, an increase of over $300 million. And this, mind you, is money that will be feeding the ministers, the permanent secretaries, and the people in high offices. Why would you want to give the bigger boys an equivalent percentage of increase in their salary to that of the boys who are working in the lower end of the public service? If a person who's working for $100,000 gets 10% increase, this government also takes 10% on their own salary. And a 10% on $1,000,000 is not the same as 10% on $100,000. So this government really and truly has to change their approach if they genuinely want to see this country move forward. Several people you see in government, they have huge homes that they have acquired in the shortest space of time. They're making themselves comfortable. They're sending their children abroad to study. It's as though there is no genuine love and development for Guyana. And it is just a case of the wealthy trying to milk as much as they can from Guyana, and then they're going to spend it elsewhere as opposed to focusing on using the resource to develop Guyana for our people. I want to see us become the Dubai of South America. I want to see us become the America or Canada in terms of our infrastructure, beauty, aesthetically lifting us to a point where we can smile and so on. But equally, I want to see our people comfortable. Equally, I want to see focus on nurses, focus on doctors, focus on our engineers, making them more comfortable. I don't want to know that Bangladeshi nurses are coming to Guyana when we have people here that we can train to become nurses and pay them comfortably. I don't want to know that Trinidadians are sending their nurses to flood our market and we have people that we can train to become nurses and be better at it and deliver services to our fellow Guyanese. It bothers me When I see a contract for a nurse from another country, their housing is being catered for, their travelings are being catered for, out of country allowance is being catered for, plus they're getting a super salary. And our very own nurses who are at home, we're not doing that for. And our nurses are ending up leaving, going to other shores, hoping for better life. It's very unfair and unfortunate. Focus on our people. That is what I want. Don't tell us that your budget has putting people first. And when you read the pages, it's really putting people last.
And that's very interesting because I mean us on this side we're no strangers to the concept of putting people first. Now or when you have seen that title of the budget, what was the first thing that came to mind?
I'm not going to lie to you. When Ashley said that the budget is centered around putting people first, the entire opposition went in an uproar because we found it not only funny, but we found it as a lack of originality on the part of the PPP. And if you look carefully, you would see that Ashley actually paused also and allowed us to have that moment. And then he came back and continued. But somewhere in between the laughter, somewhere in between the jokes and the lack of originality, I was hoping that there is going to be actual things that we had promised in our manifesto, crafted in their budget, and it would have put us as a place where we could not have criticized the budget. And I was hoping that it was really a blueprint of our manifesto. The reality is it was not. Like, for example, when they said that they were going to, they put a flat tax on four-door pickups. I think it's $3 million for 2000 cc, and once it's brand new, considered 4 years and under, and I think $2 million for older ones. Our concept was a 15% flat tax because we believe that these four-door pickups, they serve not only recreational purposes for families to go and have, recreational fun and so on, but it also assists them if they want to have a small business to fetch things from one place to another, and it can contribute to their own economic development too. The government, they put 3 million and 2 million. They actually capped it at a sum. 15% would have been way lower, by the way, because it's 15% on the cost, and a brand new vehicle like that is $10 million. So the tax would have been $1.5 million, which is way lower than what the government is proposing. We would have also increased in our putting people first slogan. We would have increased old age pension. We would have increased public assistance. We would have increased the income tax threshold, minimum wage. And there are thousands of people who benefit from things like that. Thousands of them. The few who benefit from this budget are the millionaires and billionaires that are already established in Guyana. You see, you keep this budget and the People's Progressive Party approach always, they keep giving more to the already wealthy and they're not taking from them the equivalent. So in terms of taxation and the likes, if you're getting so much, you must pay your rightful taxes. On the flip side of that, the poor people who are getting the least are expected to pay more. And because there is no focus on this budget in how to address corruption, how to address allegations of corruption, and strengthening accountability and transparency, we can only expect corruption to be higher than it is right now because the budget sum is higher. I asked a question to Ashley. I said, in the interest of ensuring accountability, transparency, and good governance at the level of the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, will you consider to incorporate in the membership of the board an opposition representation? And of course, he answered with a lot of fluff. But any good government that wanted to ensure that their name is not tarnished by the accusation of being corrupt would involve the opposition, would incorporate the opposition at the level of these boards and these commissions and so on. So the opposition having a sight, having an oversight, having a member, then you can't accuse the government of being corrupt because your member is supposed to be there to be the guardrail of the democracy, to be the onlooker, to be the person who watches what is happening. So if I, for example, let's say central housing. CHNPA, Central Housing and Planning Authority. That is governed by a board. If the government decides to say, okay, we are going to put one member from the opposition on this board, that member now have oversight on the board to ensure that they're doing it transparently. So if that member cries corruption, of course he will have his reasons to cry and he'll have the facts. But his presence there is supposed to ensure that the government appointees do their work properly, transparently, and to the best with accountability. And nobody can cry corruption because they will have to depend on that member that the opposition has to justify if it's corrupt or not. But they don't do that. They take everything for themselves. They put their friends, their family, and their favorites in these positions. They all do corrupt practices to enrich themselves. And who end up suffering at the end? The ordinary, hardworking, tax-paying Guyanese.
And for the ordinary tax-paying Guyanese, you being able to scrutinize and go through this budget with a fine teeth comb, what would be your assessment of what is the driving factor behind this budget this year?
Well, the driving factor behind this budget this year is, when you say driving factor, I'm assuming you mean where they're getting the money from to
No,
do
well,
that.
no, we will deal with that later. But based on how the monies and funds are being allocated and the plans that they have presented to Parliament, what would you say holistically do you see driving this particular budget that the government, which we note is higher than all the other budgets that have come forward? What would you say is the, because based on what you're saying, we noting it is not the average
No, it
small
is enriching.
person.
It is to really put money in the pockets of their friends, their family, and their favorites, and to get kickbacks. Because when you look at where the money is heavily in infrastructure. I think for more in total, you'd say about more than 50 something percent is focused on infrastructure. Now, who benefits from these infrastructure? The end result, the people are expected to benefit. Look at the gas for energy project. That's a major infrastructure development. One that we are not against. We do believe that with the coming on stream of the gas to energy project, it is expected to benefit the ordinary people, yes. But it was supposed to benefit us since 2025, mid 2025. Since mid 2025, we were supposed to benefit. And it was supposed to be at a cost of less than what it is right now. I think it is over $200 billion or thereabout, somewhere around that amount, and it's supposed to be way less than that before. So, as much as we will end up sometime in the future, and I'm not optimistic about 2026, but I'm hoping that we do, as much as in 2026 we're expected to have a lower electricity cost because of the gas to energy project. From the time it was conceptualized to where it is right now, one set of people keep getting huge sums of money from it. It is the taxpayers' money that keeps going into it that is expected to give us an end result, which was supposed to be in middle 2025. We are now in the beginning of 2026. We are being told that at the end of 2026, it will be coming on stream. Huge sums of money continue to go into it, and it's only a few people that are getting it. And that's what I'm saying. The roads, the other big infrastructure projects and so on that they're constructing, the time span it's taking, the amount of money that is going into it, there is no feasibility study that is going towards these projects to ensure it is being done so that you don't have wastage. We're wasting the money basically. The end result is expected to benefit the people, but slowly people are losing it. They are getting frustrated. People are not happy. You're not seeing people expressing that happiness because of the duration and the no proper plan that has us where we are. They built a road, the Heroes Highway. Now you're seeing them doing several other work there. They have done so many projects and they have to break it up and build it back. The Grove Diamond area there with that road project, I think that's about 12 times they spend money to fix Grove Diamond. I don't know if it's permanently fixed or they will have to go and fix it again. Several projects, millions and billions of dollars have been spent on. No proper plan, no feasibility study, nothing to give you proper work and value for money, nothing of
Mhm.
performance.
Allow me
And they have
allow
to
me
end
to
up spending
interject
back.
you there. I was listening to the Minister of Public Infrastructure, and he was speaking to the same issues of the projects and the stuff that you've noted. And one of the things that jumped out at me was that he noted that these particular projects, such as the Diamond Road and all these other, infrastructural developments, he noted that things need to happen in phases. And I think that is the government's justification for the prolongment of these projects that we expect to be off of the ground, such as the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, which should have been completed at least 2 years prior to when it was actually completed. And the argument I heard from the government side is that these things need to happen in phases. So they build the Heroes Highway. It is 4 lanes now. They want to expand it to 6 lanes. So they have to do the first phase, build four, and then they slowly phase into six lanes in total. And that is how this government has been approaching the projects. And his argument is that's not anything new. That is standard, that things need to be done in phases. After phase one, there's phase two, then phase three. How do you respond to that?
You see, Eden, when you conclude that things have to be done in phases, it has to mean that you have already concluded to yourself what the end product is. So if they had known from the onset that the end product is 6 lanes, then they would have said to us from the outset that phase one will be 4 lanes, phase two is then going to encapsulate the 6 lane, but they did not. They built that road for 2 lanes on each side, 4 lanes from the beginning. And as they continue to go, then they see the need to add the 2 more lanes. And what that did is that it disturbed the actual shoulders that were put there for the established 2 lanes. The actual sums of money could have been less if there was a plan in place. If there was a blueprint in place, then they would have built accordingly to that. Look what they did at the Hagbosh landfill site area. They have basically disturbed the buffer zone. So the stink smell that you get is because of the work that's going on early. They moved ahead and built cell 3. They spent millions of dollars to build cell 3 to cover the garbage. When they knew if they had a plan, they would have known that, you know what, we're going to do all of these infrastructure development here. We got a plan now to move Hagbosh. And Hagbosh is going to move till in 2029. So the uncomfortable smell, the stench, will be continuously hampering the people on the East Bank because they have not done or started or intend to move Hagbosh as yet, but they have to carry it to Lusignan, as I made to understand, till in 2029. My question is, those 4 buildings that they're building there for the office complex, just off of Hagbosh, are they going to wait to occupy it till 2029? 8 point something billion dollars already spent, and you're not seeing 8 point something billion dollars worth when you look at that project. The end result of all of this, Eden, is that the people of Guyana, we have a government that is all about enriching themselves. We have a government that is focused on giving to the ordinary, the poor, and the hardworking pittance, crumbs, while they hug all and the huge sums to themselves. And some people are saying that it is difficult to prove corruption and all of these things. No, it's not difficult. I think we in Budget 2026, through our questioning, exposed corruption. And the additional part of the corruption is when they give out contracts at huge sums because they have to get a kickback and a drawback from it. And that's how you can explain a minister who has not been in a minister for years can own several properties, huge properties, buying them from hundreds of millions of dollars. That's how you could justify several vehicles in a minister's yard, because they can buy a house in Florida, and they can have a bank account in a foreign state. Any politician that is rich is a crook. And that was said by Mr. Truman from America, I think one of the presidents of the United States. And that's something that is very important for us to process. any politician that is rich is really a crook.
Now, the presence of oil in our economy is now one of the big things, right? It is like the cherry on top of the smoothie or the cake. And the discovery of oil has led to a more deliberate effort towards management and a creation of the national, let me get it, right, resource fund based
Natural resource fund.
natural resource funds, thanks. Now, based on the estimates that we see this year, and I know a lot of comparison has been made through the second week where we dealt with more in-depth scrutiny, there has been a more parallel between what has happened last year and what is going to, or what is intended to happen this year. Now, things such as the natural resource fund, do we see a proper management of these particular government agencies and bodies that have been designed to be able to create a sustainable economic revenue for the country in a whole based on the numbers and the figures that you've seen presented in comparison to last year? Do we see proper management of these new resources that are being put in place?
Oh, definitely not. You see, the Natural Resource Fund, what should have happened is that is a fund that captures the revenue that comes from the non-renewable resources, and particular oil. And oil will come to a standstill at some point. So as much as we can gain from oil, that is what goes into the Natural Resource Fund. And you're expected to save from it also for future generations so that they can benefit from it. Instead, what we see the government doing with the Natural Resource Fund is that they're taking a bulk, a lump sum from it, and they're putting it into the national budget, and they're distributing it across various projects so it can facilitate not just infrastructure development, but it's also in current expenditure. So meals and transportation, fuel, lubricant, all of these things are captured in the holistic. So we cannot know particularly what the sum is spent on. It is really spent on the entire budget across. This budget took out, I think, $400 and something billion from the Natural Resource Fund to complement it. But we can't tell you specifically what this $400 something billion is being spent on. And prudent management of the Natural Resource Fund should have been one where the spending is done specifically on projects. So take, for example, the new harbor bridge, the new Demerara River Bridge. If they had taken out money from the Natural Resource Fund to build that specifically, then you could have told yourself that, you know what, that went towards that project. Or the new Berbice Bridge, or the new Linden-Wismar Bridge, or the purchasing of a boat to aid in transportation. But we don't have the knowledge of what specifically it is being spent on, because it is grabbed from the Natural Resource Fund and dumped into the budget at $1.558 trillion. Another issue I have is the consolidated fund. We don't know the total of the consolidated fund. We don't know the total sum of money in our consolidated fund. And all our revenue is supposed to go into the consolidated fund, which I don't think is happening. The Lotto fund, I think, is being abused. The Lotto fund I saw in 2025 contributed about $300 million to the current revenue of our country. And in previous years, we've had $600 million to $900 million coming to go into it from Lotto fund, which means several monies have been used from the Lotto fund for various purposes. I think the government spends it on bringing in artists and so on and things, and they're not telling us. I think they're abusing the Lotto fund. In all fairness, I think they're abusing it, and it requires a special audit. The Auditor General has to step up to the plate. The Auditor General has to be more patriotic to this country and stop being friends with the PPP. The Auditor General has to realize that his job, his mandate, his responsibility to this nation is bigger than being friends with the PPP. And he has to do his job better. I think he is contributing to the status we find ourselves in because he's not holding the government accountable, which he was appointed to do. And in order for us to get it right, these offices have to function independently and they have to function with the authority that is vested in them to hold the government accountable. Government cannot be seen as superior to the laws of our nation.
And on that same point of the lack of transparency and accountability, do we see any safeguards in the 2026 budget that will prevent further corruption, wastages, and inefficiency, which seems to be almost a common feature of any PPP budget?
The short answer to that is no. We don't see any safeguarding or any measure to safeguard. I can't even say to you that I believe Ashley Singh when he said we're moving to electronic procurement because that was promised since 2022 and we don't have it on to this day. I can't even say to you that I believe Priya Manikchan when she said that we are going to complete the border green market, the Stabrook market, and several other markets across the country because that was supposed to be done last year. The budget book reflects that all of these monies are spent out. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? When you reflect that all the money is spent out, it means that there's supposed to be the project equivalent to the sum that you can see with the naked eyes. I ask anybody out there, go to Stabrook Market and tell me, do you see $200 million of work done there? Go to Border Green. Do you see $260 million of work done there? Go to any one of these markets that they have called. Bath Market, Blairmont Market, Port Kaituma Market, Anna Regina Market. Name them. You go to anyone and tell me, have you seen millions of dollars of work done at these various markets? Where is the money? Where is the money? It's reflected in the book as spent out. Where is it? Obviously, it has to be in somebody's pocket. That's the only conclusion I could have reached. And then they put several hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars again for the very same project. Is that not corruption? You know another thing I want to raise with you? The Ministry of Public Works, they bought a boat, the MV Hercules. They bought that boat, which is a third-hand boat. It's an old boat that sailed from America and came to Guyana. And Marine Inc. is the company, owned and operated by one Mr. Larry Singh. They paid close to $180 million or thereabout for that old boat. It's a tugboat. When they bought this boat from the gentleman for $180 million, it now becomes the property of the Ministry of Public Works. Ministry of Public Works now went and entered into a contract with the very people of Marine Inc. for them to operate the boat at a cost of $400,000 a day. So that's about $12 million a month. So Marine Inc. sold us a third-hand boat for $180 million and is still getting $12 million a month for the same operations of the boat. If the boat becomes defunct or it cannot work or it has mechanical issues or whatever issue, the ministry has to incur the cost. Maintenance of the boat, the ministry has to do it. All the company does is provide about 4 persons to work on the boat and pay those 4 persons, the sailor, the captain, and probably 2 other persons for them to be on the boat. Nothing else. Why is it that the ministry could not have provided its own staff that it has, that they're paying, to work and operate the boat just like how we're operating Makaura, Malali, Kanawan, Sabantu. All of these boats are operated on the transport and harbors under the Ministry of Public Works. What makes this boat more special than the other boats? It could only be because they have to keep giving their friend money. They got to keep giving their friend, family, and favorites money. The ministry could have employed people, train them, certify them, and then give them the boat to operate under the ambit of Transport and Harbors Department. But you chose instead, Edgil, the great bishop, as he so believe he is, chose instead to buy the boat for $180 million and contract the same people and let them get $12 million a month. Isn't that facilitating Wastage, isn't that a part of corruption? Isn't that something that is not supposed to happen? And God forbid it's being supervised by a bishop.
And we see these wastages and these poor management, or I would say a deliberate attempt to waste the monies of the Guyanese people that could be put otherwise or could be used in another manner. We continue to see these things, and in the notable projects and items that you have raised. Now, does that now bring a concern for the overall management of the government in total? If this is how we see them dealing with it at these small incremental aspects at this stage, does that now bring a big concern to yourself and to the APNU party in relation to what is also possibly happening before we reach the point of scrutiny?
You know, Eden, I'm going to divert and pivot to answer your question this way. We, the people of Guyana, we are the ones who are responsible for what is before us. We, the people of Guyana, we are responsible for what is happening, and we have to do something about it. We have to stand up. We have to sound our voices. We have to be compelled by our conscience to fight against inequality. We got to fight against a government that doesn't have our interest at heart. We got to fight against a government that does not want to put us first. And if we sit quietly and allow ourselves to be taken advantage of, then we cannot blame anybody else but ourselves. There are several public servants and other officials who have given us countless information. Our performance that you saw in the National Assembly, which I heard a lot of people saying we did well, was because several people provided us with information and wanted to remain anonymous. And I'm saying that there has to be this move at some point where boldness can step in, where maturity and comfortableness can step in, where one can tell themselves that enough is enough, and we rebel against a government that is authoritative, dictatorial, and only for their friend, family, and favorite. And I hope the day soon come where we can stand united as a people and fight the demons that exist in high places, that sit and abuse our resources only to enrich themselves and punish us.
Thank you, Ganesh. Now, winding down, the youths, that has been a key point in all political parties coming out of the last national elections. There's been a lot of talk about, the youths and the youths and the youths. So my question is, what does this budget say to the young people? Is it a case where our youths are being prepared to take over economies and industry, or are they just relegated to remaining at the bottom, receiving crumbs and hopes and wishes?
That you have put it correctly. They were relegated to receiving crumbs and wishes and small tokens. When you look at the Small Business Bureau, when you look at the business opportunities and so on, it is really for the young people to get involved in small micro businesses, and they're not given the opportunity to get involved in large businesses. They're not given the space to flourish in large businesses because that is being kept for the friends of the government. That is being kept for the friend, family, and favorites of the government. The other young people who may have brilliant ideas, who may want to explore and get involved into big companies and so on, they're not given that opportunity to do that. They're not given the space to grow and flourish. They're not given the opportunity to take the risk to borrow huge sums of money that requires that level of investment to step up to the plate, to really lead from the front. You have selected few. Don't get me wrong. You have selected few that they will do. So if there are 100 young people that want the opportunity, 5 of them may get it from the government, whilst 95 will have to go towards the smaller and the things, there's this small chicken rearing and those kind. And I'm not talking against these things, because I do believe we got to focus on them. But we have to give them the opportunity to build and build stronger. Look, You see, I saw something. Some young people, they have been getting mining lands. They have been getting the friendliness of the government to grow, and others are not. I would say, if these are my concluding thoughts, that the government has to be more balanced in their approach. Nothing is wrong giving the big boys something, nothing is wrong giving the rich something. But everything is wrong when you don't give everybody equal and equitable opportunity to grow and prosper. It is everything is wrong when one set of people is treated like kings and queens and the other sets are treated like servants. Everything is wrong when you don't have a balanced approach. Everything is wrong when the law does not apply equitably across the table. Everything is wrong when you don't have fair treatment of all your people. And right now we have a country where everything is wrong because there is no balance in the approach of government. There is no focus in terms of ensuring the law applies equally across the table. And there's no fair way of treating our people equally across the table.
And in closing, historically, Guyana is known for our rich culture, our rich natural resources. However, over the years, we've been classified as a developing state, which is, for common vernacular, it is a poor country. We have now been in the oil game for about a decade, approximately, give and take. So the view that Guyana is a developing country or a poor state can no longer stand. Guyana is now recognized internationally as having the fastest growing economy amongst all other great things. My question is does our budget reflect our new reality in Guyana being a forefront of developing states within the South American region and the Caribbean region and then the world at large? Does our budget reflect the new status that we have attained as a country?
The budget on paper reflects it, but the reality on the ground does not reflect it. What is printed in paper or on paper, what is told to us, and what is being spewed by government representative, that is oftentimes not the reality what we see on the ground. We are told of this country being this blossoming economy. 5.5 years now we are gaining from oil. We're seeing roads, we're seeing this, we're seeing that, and everybody from the government side is speaking so well about it because they are benefiting from it. But on the ground, I have not seen, outside of the bridge, the road, and so on the ground, I have not seen the ordinary people being lifted out of the nightmare they were in 10 years ago, or in the nightmare they were in 5, 6 years ago. I still see poor and vulnerable people. In fact, almost every day on the road, I'm seeing a brand new vagrant, and that's the sad reality. I'm not seeing a government that really caters for its people, and sadly, we're seeing more people suffering, though our country is gaining more, and cost of living continues to eat at the poor. The rich, they are not suffered by that because they have and they can cater for themselves. But the poor continues to suffer, and the poor is in the majority. So on paper, it is so, but the reality, it is not so.
Now, before we go, there's just a few things I would like you to lend your voice to in relation to Parliament. Now, at the commencement of Parliament, there seemed to be a delay in appointing particular functionaries as demanded by the Constitution. Further to that, there have been a cry from the public, more specifically the press and the media, in relation to an attempt to curtail free speech, etc. On top of that, now we see one of the major parts of our media is now taking an exit. Now, the circumstances are not here or there. They're claiming that a part of the decision is as a result of what they believe as an attempt to try and silence the independence of the media. What are your thoughts on all of these particular things that have transpired that touch and concern the free speech and the presence of media, coming off as well of the report from the EU observers in relation to what their findings were during this election? What are your thoughts?
Everything that you're saying, I believe our viewership is intelligent to decipher where you're going and what you're getting at. And because you said finally, I am going to say that the answer to fixing all the problems really and truly depend on each and every one of us. We who are viewing this program, the answer depends on what we do. And if we are going to sit in our homes, view and say, okay, yes, well done, well said, that is not enough. We have to step up to the plate and we have to take the bull by the horn. We have to take control and we have to make the move to getting it right. And I trust that we will wake up as a people and get it right.
Mr. Mahipaul, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you for coming and lending your wisdom and your expertise to this program once again. We here at Nation Watch are always happy to have you here. And please don't wait for us to call you. We will always enjoy you coming on this program. To all our viewers and our listeners, thank you for giving us a few minutes of your day whenever you're listening to this. I know that we are soon approaching the celebration of Mashramani, and I would like to take this time to encourage all of those who are in the preparation to celebrate to go out to enjoy all that Guyana has to offer, because at the end of the day, this is our country. To our public servants, to those within the private sector, our loyal listeners, our supporters, on behalf of Nation Watch and the People's National Congress Reform, thank you for tuning in to another episode.